Child brides, some as young as 5 years old. Sound shocking? Well, it's happening today. Hi, I'm Renee Kaufman, in for Richard Peretz. Our program today is about a worldwide concern that is often overlooked. More than 100 million child brides will be married during the next 10 years in the developing world. This is still happening in Africa, in Southern Asia, in Muslim countries, and elsewhere, and is very common, especially in poverty-stricken areas. We hope to shed light on this subject in the hope that more will be done to protect all children from abuse and exploitation. We have reports from several countries right after these messages.
I read Life Extension magazine to keep abreast of medical discoveries that can literally save my life. Life Extension's track record, dating back to 1980, shows they are decades ahead of conventional medicine in identifying proven methods to prevent and treat the diseases of aging. Reading Life Extension magazine will empower you to take control over your health and longevity. And as a special favor to me, the Life Extension Foundation will give a free 1-year subscription to anyone today. Just call the number on this screen to obtain your free Life Extension subscription. There's no cost, no obligation, just the opportunity to discover solid options to live longer and better. Call the number on the screen today to start receiving Life Extension magazine each month.
Take charge of your health. Get your free subscription to Life Extension magazine now by calling toll-free 1-800-509-9117 or visit www.lef.org.
One of the most horrific crimes in our world and egregious violation of human rights is the continuing abuse and exploitation of children. This is still taking place in many countries today, including the forced marriages of child brides. Child marriage continues to plague developing countries across the world, where girls as young as 6 are married off to men sometimes 4, 5, 6 or 7 times their age. Many of them will become pregnant and die while giving birth. Others are often subjected to cruelty, violence, and other abuse. The United Nations Population Fund stated that more than 142 million girls under the age of 18 will become child brides in the next decade.
Child brides are more likely than unmarried girls to die younger and suffer from health problems. Most of them live in poverty and remain illiterate. We'll continue with our next report.
The disturbing prospect of 100 million child brides in the next decade has galvanized teenage girls in the United States who are demanding action on behalf of their young counterparts around the world.
You see it, girl! We see the future!
The United Nations Foundation's Girl Up campaign has mobilized 150,000 American teens. They say they want the practice of child marriage stopped and have delivered a petition to the White House signed by girls across the U.S.
It's a human rights issue. I think it's a problem when anyone is forced to do anything that they don't want to do or are not clear about or are not prepared for. Child marriage is huge because once you get married at such a young age, you know, your life's not over, but your life has drastically changed its path.
Child bride expert Jennifer Redner says the practice of marrying girls off early has profound negative impacts.
Absolutely. When a young girl may come home from school one day and find her bags packed, or may find out the next day there'll be some sort of ceremony where she'll be wed, sometimes as young as 8, 9, 10, the consequences can be absolutely detrimental. She's more likely to be married the younger she is to someone older. Therefore, the power dynamics will be even more difficult in terms of her being able to negotiate safe sex, to be able to stay in school, to be able to not get pregnant as early as 10, 11 years old. So the consequences are quite strong.
Elizabeth Gore from the UN Foundation says for the victims of this practice, the stakes are high.
One girl that I met in Ethiopia who is scared and has run away, and she is sitting in a bus depot, either going to be brokered into sex work or not educated or into domestic labor, and she never gets a shot, all the way over to massive numbers that we're talking about with millions of women dying in childbirth because they're too young, because they've been married off and sexually active too early.
But old habits die hard. Zambian ambassador to the US, Sheila Sawela, says education is key in changing deep-seated cultural traditions.
Let's go back to the girl child themselves. Let's go to the parents and the mother. Let's ask the mother, how old were you when you got married? Chances that she will say I was 21. So why are you sending your daughter away at 12?
But she believes the practice can be ended.
I think it's nearer than we think. As long as we step up the efforts of encouraging the girl child to go back to school and finish school, and again, as long as we go back to the communities themselves to make their own decisions.
And at the end of the day, if the Girl Up campaign is to succeed, it must be the adults in the communities who change their thinking and let the children be children.
This entire subject is shocking and distressing.
During sex, I was crying and begging him to stop, but he didn't listen. Then he put his hand on my mouth like this. I couldn't breathe, and I was crying, but he used me anyway. And I just cried.
The practice of child marriage is common in many parts of the world. It's not exclusive to any particular religion or society. Despite laws that forbid it, long-held cultural traditions die hard. If the current trend continues, more than 100 million more young girls will be married over the next decade.
They were decorating my hands with nugs, but I didn't know they were going to marry me off. Then my mother came in and said, "Come on, my daughter." They were dressing me up and I was asking, "Where are you taking me?" They just said, "Come, come," and then they performed the wedding.
Child marriage occurs in more than 50 developing countries around the world, and almost always results in the girl's removal from school. What families don't realize is that by curtailing girls' education, they're only perpetuating the cycle of poverty. Still, families do this for a number of reasons. Perhaps they can't afford to feed the rest of their children. It can create family alliances, and it often settles debts. Early marriage often results in abusive and even deadly consequences. As one Afghan policewoman told me, girls are routinely seen as family burdens, while their male counterparts are seen as kings. She was later murdered by the Taliban.
I was 7-8 when I was engaged. My father and his father, they wanted to exchange their children. That time I thought of committing suicide.
I was married when I was 7 years old. I always say God is punishing me for something.
One of the reasons that child marriage continues to prevail is the husband's family and the husband think that when they bring a girl into the family when she's so young, they can mold her to be exactly what they want her to be. And there is this sense that somehow the man is raising this child as his wife.
A good wife should be respectful of the groom's family because she's now going to live with them. We don't call a woman beautiful by her looks, but by how nicely she takes care of her house and her husband.
He was trying to have sex with me, and I was crying, and I kept struggling to free myself from him. He mocked me, saying, "Where are you going to go?" Then he used me.
I was a woman exchanged for someone else's wrongdoing. My father-in-law and my husband, they were all with the Taliban. My father-in-law took me out of the house to a mountain. I thought they would kill me or behead me. I did not think he would cut my nose and my ears. The blood came over my eyes. I didn't know where the blood was coming from.
My friends were not getting married, and it was only me, so I didn't like that. So when I saw my parents preparing the feast, I knew they were definitely going to give me to a husband. So I escaped. I was about 14. The person who gave me a ride, he raped me while we were on our way here. So I was devastated. I regret coming here, and I wish I had stayed with my family because the person who raped me didn't use a condom. And he introduced me to a broker who got me this job as a prostitute. After 15 days, I found out I was pregnant. I started getting sick. I struggled as much as I could and worked as a prostitute until I was 9 months pregnant.
In some cultures, there's this myth that by marrying young virgins, AIDS will be cured. Many times they start having sex immediately because they have no control over the situation. The husband is the one who rules. Older men who have sex with younger girls tend to have sex more frequently.
I don't know how children are made, but they get pregnant and they deliver a baby. They carry it inside their stomach. Then they deliver and it comes out a baby.
I didn't want to get pregnant because I was very small. I wanted to wait until I am old enough.
Is she worried that she won't make it through the birth?
Sometimes I think I will die.
Was she hopeful for any help, or is she worried about her future?
I have never got help from anywhere until now. I don't know anyone who will help me.
The good news is that rates of child marriage are going down. The problem is we don't want to wait 50 or 100 years for child marriage to disappear. We're talking about 100 million girls who will get married as children over the next decade. We want the change to occur faster.
We were studying when my mother was still alive, but then she passed away and they don't allow me to go to school.
Education is the single largest protective factor against child marriage. Girls don't want to be child brides. Childhood is not for cooking, cleaning, and having babies. It's for education and having friends and having fun.
I pray that we will have better opportunities in the future. I pray that I'll be free from HIV when I'm tested. I also pray that the men who were very rude, who beat us, who use knives and guns to threaten us, that we will not have these men in our lives. I pray.
The fact that these practices are still tolerated in our world today is a great shame. We now continue with our next segment.
I asked my guide, or what we call fixers in the business, I said, well, what's the saddest part, or what's the most interesting part of this story to you? And he said, it's the opium brides. I said, well, introduce me to one. And he said, oh, which one? There's so many of them. Her father had sold her and her older sister to Helmand smugglers. And the smuggler had come to get her several times to convince her to go. And she didn't want to go.
The fathers who sell their daughters to settle their opium debts are ashamed of what they're doing. It is not something that is accepted or normal. It has been done in the past. It's not something new. But the level and how many are being done is unprecedented inside Afghanistan right now. In Opium Nation, that's what I talk about, is the change from then and now, and why this has become a more common practice because of the opium trade, because this society has disintegrated and the family is being interrupted, the family is being destroyed as a result of this, because these traffickers often take these girls and they don't ever see them again. Self-immolation has become common in the western part of the country, and it's a sort of a, I wouldn't know, a tradition. It's a way of protest. They don't understand that there's only a slight chance of surviving it. I think they do it as a protest, thinking they're going to get their way. They're going to be able to escape their misery. And maybe they won't die. I think some women want to die. I think it's important to invest in women, keeping the men who are in their lives a part of that investment. I think that this has been a mistake in aid programs, is singling out women for projects and leaving behind the men. That has been a problem with the aid that's come in the last 10 years inside Afghanistan. Women are resentful. Your husband's sitting at home without a job and you get the job. He doesn't do the cooking at home. He will not take care of the kids at home. So the woman goes to work all day, then she comes home and she has to do the cooking and taking care of the kids and deal with his resentment. This is a problem. And that kind of investment doesn't work.
Saida, married at 9 to a 60-year-old man. 8 years on, she's on the run from him.
He doesn't care if I'm dead or alive.
Saida is just one girl in the most shocking set of statistics in Afghanistan. 60% of women are still married as children, often at 9 or 10. Under Afghan law, girls can't marry under 16, but the law's ignored by families and the government.
There was an old man in the village who had already killed 2 wives and had a very bad reputation. No one would even let him take a dog for a walk.
Saida's father died when she was little, and her brothers claimed her as their property. They sold her to the old man as his wife.
If he saw a shoe or a stick, anything, he would beat me with it. I spent 7 years with him, as if I was sitting on a hot stove all the time. I had 4 miscarriages because of the beating and the stress.
Then her husband took Saida on the road, all over Afghanistan, to places where they weren't known, to make money from her. He sold her, forced her into having sex with other men.
He would say I was his daughter. He actually sold me to 3 or 4 people. You understand what I mean? He took money from these people. I would cry and say, "For God's sake, what's happening to me?"
It was in Mazar-e-Sharif, a government-controlled city, that I found Saida. She'd confided in a woman at a shrine. The police were alerted and Saida was taken to a woman's shelter. Now her stepfather and staff at the shelter are helping her to get a divorce. But Saida's husband won't agree to let her go. He's unlikely to ever be prosecuted for what he did to a child.
I am very scared. He is in touch with my stepdad through the phone. When I talk to him, he says he is praying to God for an opportunity to drink my blood. He says he wouldn't even care if he dies after that.
Saida's childhood has been destroyed. She's 17 and can't read or write. But she knows that only by educating girls and boys will Afghanistan's women be brought out of the dark ages.
All the problems we face are to do with a lack of schooling. People who are educated will not make their daughters and sisters suffer.
It's essential to inform the public and thereby promote human rights concerning children, with education and new laws being the key. I'm Renee Kaufman. Thank you for being with us.